Hello everyone. Thank you very much for attending our special noodle class today. We are broadcasting from Yamato headquarters in Kagawa. And my name is Akira, and this is my colleague Megumi. And so we are making craft spicy noodles. Like we're gonna craft our spicy noodles today, and this is our one of the most favorite subjects because we like like everyone loves spicy food, but like, it's not just fiery, like hot, spicy, but like there are many types of spicy, spiciness. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So like by watching this class, you should be able to like make your own craft spicy noodles. Like craft is a key. And so please watch it to the end of the class. And so what we're going to do is that like we're going to go through a little bit of lecture, which I'm gonna try my best not to, make you guys like bored to death. But like, and then or Megumi's gonna make spicy noodles on our noodle machine, and so like we're just gonna go through like the whole process, like making, craft spicy noodles from scratch. So please stay tuned to the end of the class, and you will not regret it. So let's get started on the lecture. And so we're doing craft spicy noodles, and like there are many types of like spiciness, and there are three things I just gonna like briefly wanna go through, and so like there are many types of like spiciness, and like basically like well you need to begin with the end in mind. So like what kind of spicy or stimulations like you want your customers to have, right? So that's what you have to like decide, right? And to begin with. So like there's like hot, like kind of spicy hot, and then like there's kind of citrusy sort of flavor, like peppery spiciness, and like nutty, um, or like kind of spiciness like that gives you like kind of numbing sensation, or like some like kind of like smoky flavor. Some people like it. And once you decide like what kind of stimulation that you want, right? And then you need to decide like how strong, right? How strong you want that kind of flavor to be, to like what to have your customers to well, you know, well experience, right? So basically like that's what we're gonna talk about in that production method. And so what kind of ingredients like can we use? What kind of spices can we use, right, for spicy noodles? And of course, like there are many types of spices, right, around the world. And the ones we have in Japan, like we have like many types. And then so turmeric, I mean cumin, coriander, like garlic, black pepper, and chili pepper, of course, and ginger, Sichuan pepper, like kind of Chinese, kind of like that gives you the one that gives you like kind of numbing sensation. And Chinese, I mean Japanese pepper, and it's not really kind of like it's like kind of herb, but like we have wasabi powder as well. So and then there are different forms, right? So this way, these are like all these like berries and like plant-based some like spices, right? And then they go through like certain process, like kind of drying process. Maybe like some of them like go through like roasting process to be used as a spice. And so like we could probably get a hands on that, like on them like as in form of like fresh, being fresh, like dry or like roasted, like maybe like there's some other condition that like we can buy these spices in. And so but basically like these like there are many other types of spices that we could use for noodles, but these are the like basic types of like spices like that we have used to make noodles with. And so third, I want to kind of like just briefly go through like production methods, right? Like, when we're talking about how we can make spicy noodles, we have to like, of course, like first like think about like ingredients, right? What kind of ingredients we're gonna use, and as always, right? Like when we think about you know making noodles, we always think about like the ingredients in terms of like the solid ingredients, so solid ingredients and then liquid ingredients. because we have like as a basic like or main ingredients we have some kind of grain flour, like maybe like wheat flour, maybe like um, rye, wheat flour, like some type of like grain flour, right? So and anything that's solid, we list them here. And well, typically, like all the spices, like chili pepper powder or something, in powder form, or they come like in the dry form, and it's like so we consider it as solid ingredients. And so, and then we have liquid ingredients, right? And then, of course, water um, is the main thing. And then if you're making ramen noodles, and then we may use some type of kanshi like that's basically combination of potassium carbonate, sodium carbonate, and we did a whole class on kanshi previously. So like if you're interested in, please check our YouTube channel. And if you're making like some kind of like udon noodles or something, then you are going to use a lot of salt kind of in the place of like kanshi. And we might use some kind of spice, right, also in a liquid form. And yeah, like there are certain types of spices that are like water soluble. So it may be like we haven't really done a lot of trials, but like in this way, but like there are some like spices that like they may work better like if we dissolve in water first and then like use it as liquid ingredients instead of like the solid ingredients. So um, we just have to try like see if like which way like works better in terms of like flavor, like strength of the spiciness. And so once we have this, solid and liquid ingredients like kind of constructed, right? Um, yeah, we need to think about this like solid ingredients moisture content. So if you're using wheat flour, right? Like the moisture content is usually 14 to 15%, and then the rest of them like is protein and starch, right? But like these numbers are kind of solid, right? It's like it doesn't move much by like different type of flour, like wheat flour. And like if you're using chili powder, right, like as a like our spice, right, then chili powder has like much less moisture content, and then because it's way drier than wheat flour. So depending on the ratio, like kind of blending ratio of the wheat flour and the like spice powder, we need to like think about like the whole sort of like moisture content of solid ingredients. And for example, like because if you are using 10% chili powder and then like 90% like wheat flour, and it's like the whole like moisture content of that solid um, ingredients would be way different. Like if you're using just like 5% and 95%, right? So we need to think about like what the moisture content would be like, like what in total, like the whole solid ingredients would be. Then we can think about like hydration, right? If we because we have to probably add more liquid to get like the same kind of like noodle hardness. If we are making like 10%, 90%, then we're making like 5%, 95% because it's definitely drier. So that's the thing, like if you're using like spice powder, like powder form, and which has like a way less moisture content, then rather think about like the kind of balance um, to get that kind of right noodle texture, which is like hardness, chewiness, and kind of like how coarse, how rough the noodle texture will be, which is probably given from like kind of particle size of like the spice. For example, like in chili powder, like you get like chili peppers and then dried chili peppers, and then you can grind them into certain sizes, right? Certain size, like you can make like a fine powder, but like you can also make them into kind of like a rough, particles, right? So depending on that size, you should also decide on the noodle size. And because if you're adding like the spice powder that's like kind of big, right? And then that's gonna break your noodles if you are making like noodles in small size, like thin noodles. And so depending on that, the size of noodle in spice powder, you should adjust your noodle size. And definitely the bigger the noodle size, right, the spicier it gets. And you also have to like think about the cooking and boiling process. Like so, the noodles, all the fresh noodles have to be cooked right before they're consumed. So how much spiciness or flavor is gone right in cooking? It's like some of them will like, get resolved in the cooking water, right, boiling water, and yeah, some of them will lost like I guess like with the noodles themselves, like that what the spice is needed in. So we had to think about that to get the sort of final the kind of like spiciness that you want your customers to experience, right? So these are things, and of course, like you have to think about the cost, right? Cost. Um, yeah, it would be great, like if you make them like really spicy, right? So like yeah, I'm adding like 10% of the like whatever, right? Whatever the spice, right? But like how much it's going to cost you, right? How much it's going to cost you to, get like, well, use 100 grams of like certain spice that's like way more expensive than wheat flour. Um, then, it may be better like if you make like 50 grams and then, you probably after like cooking, boiling the noodles, and then like customers like probably wouldn't be able to like tell the difference between, 5%, 10%. Um, if that's the case, then you should go with 5% ratio that rather than like like adding like kilograms more, like and then that's gonna add up like as you serve this type of noodles more and more, right? So cost is another thing, right? And then like also like texture, then for the noodle size, if you make your noodles like a bit bigger, then you maybe like save a bit of spice, there. So that's something you should think about when you're crafting your own spicy noodles. And so like you need to like hit the right balance between like the solid ingredients and then the spice, and well to well like let the customers like experience your craft spicy noodles, to the extent where like they are satisfied with that kind of level of spiciness that they bring to their customers. So yeah, so let's start making our craft spicy noodles today. And yeah, we have some like interesting um, spices today, and yeah, so maybe we like made some of the some spicy noodles, and these were like really well pretty popular, like common like chili powder, and so what she did was like she had this chili pepper, right? Chili pepper, and then grind them, and then like grind them into like kind of different sizes, like particle size, like so it's like this is roughly round. This is like fine powder, and then what she did was like kind of she mixed them like one to one ratio, and then kneaded them into the noodles. So you maybe will like see, yeah, you maybe will like see like kind of big bits of chili pepper here, right? So if you have like this big chunk of like chili right in the noodles, like you should make your noodle size bigger, definitely. Otherwise, like your noodles will break. And this one is interesting, like because this is a wasabi powder, and Yeah, I wish you guys were here to like kind of well smell the flavor of it, like 'cause it's definitely wasabi. And yeah, actually the guy holding this smartphone is actually wearing a mask because like he can't bear the flavor of this uh, wasabi. And then so we have some other like star anise and uh, so yeah, this is a Japanese pepper senshou, and that's kind of distinctive aroma like flavor as well. And so yeah, so these are the ingredients. These are the ingredients. So flour, the chili pepper with like roughly round one, and then like kind of finely ground powder, 1 to 1 ratio, and currency and salt and water. So let's go. And so we are making a dough. This and so notice she put like all the solid ingredients first in the mixer, right? And this is 10 kilograms mixer, 10 kilograms mixer, and like minimum batch is 4 kilograms. So those the total weight of the solid ingredients she just put in the mixer is 4 kilograms, and the water, right? Water and currency and salt mixed together, right? And so, as I said, right in there, hydration is important, and because we added like kind of fair amount of chili powder, that's actually 7% of the total solid ingredients. 7%, like putting 7% like chili powder. That's well, whose moisture content is like way less than like wheat flour. That's gonna bring down the whole like moisture content of the solid ingredients. So we have to increase the hydration ratio quite a bit to get that sort of same sort of like hardness noodle texture that if you're doing for example like 5% or so like hydration ratio like definitely like the more for example like the spice powder that food moisture content is like way less than the white wheat flour um, you know the more like you have to add, the more liquid you have to add. So okay, so luckily like she made me prepare the dough in advance. And yeah, so look at this dough, how like kind of wet or like the conditioned dough. That's a bit kind of wetty. I'd say like this dough is like around maybe 34, 5% ish, 33, 34, 5 maybe. Um, okay, yeah, so that's like really kind of I think by adding like kind of rough chili powder, it's orange, but like it's kind of dark orange kind of, and so she's feeding this crumbles dough into the roller units to make rough sheet of dough, and so yeah, rough sheet of dough is coming out, and it's still rough and like pretty fragile, but it's a sheet of dough that's that's being formed from the this like crumbles dough. So that's a start. And yeah, I wish you guys are here, like, cause the smell, that the flavor of the chili is like pretty strong. I think like just 7% of total solid ingredients. The chili is still, yeah, it's kind of pretty pungent. It's it gets to your sort of like nostrils and then kind of yeah. So if you have like some allergy or something, like makes you sneeze and yeah, it's very strong. But you see that like all these like dots, they're like kind of bigger than the other ones. Like so these are the ones that are, she mixed with kind of fine powder. So it's like kind of well, kind of bits of like skins of like chili peppers that are needed. And so you at least need to be able to like well make your noodle size like bigger than this, bigger than this like these bits. Otherwise, your noodles like like are prone to break. And and I think like we think that it's I think it's better to make like kind of spicy noodles like in bigger size than like in a thinner size. Because you you're it's like by making like bigger noodles, you're kind of strengthening the you know the spiciness. And I think like in the first place, like, people who are ordering like spicy noodles to begin with, like I mean, they love spicy food. So why not like make them like spicy as like we can, right? So because why not like give them what they want, right? So the first round of just like we call it forming, rough forming of dough into like this sheet, right sheet of dough, and next what we're gonna do is we're gonna separate it into two, right? Two and two roll to the sheet, those sheet, and then I'm gonna combine them, right? For rollers. So just feeding them to the roller, right? And this is gonna be they're gonna be compounded through the roller, and that's how you're sort of like kind of working the dough. And it may be like hard for you guys to see, but like the the dough is like well definitely the surface is smoother, and so it's getting firmer definitely. And although like there are some like kind of well some part of dough is like kind of a bit whiter than the other parts, and like there's some parts of dough like kind of more orange than the other parts, but like yeah, they're gonna come together. And then when you make them noodles, and when you cook them, right, and that's a whole different um, story. I mean, it's amazing like how they change, like how they cook them, like from condition of fresh noodles. I mean, totally different. So yeah, once you make your spicy noodles, like craft spicy noodles, yeah, you should try them. To try them, and then like definitely check out how much of the like spiciness, like the flavors, the noodles like lose after cooking. That's important, and that really has to do with type of spice you're using, and because some types of like some types like like more water soluble than the other types, right? And as I said, like we haven't really like done much of the testing, but sometimes like it may be worth the try to like see if like some of the spices are like maybe like work better than like if you use it as like liquid ingredients rather than solid ingredients. See like if the spiciness, right? The spice like strength of the spice like stay like retain better after cooking than the like if you use it as like solid ingredients. So after so this is the second time like she's combining this dough, and after that like we want to dust it. We want to dust it to make sure well it's not gonna stick. And so this is second, we call it, this is second combining process. Yeah, so the amount of dusting, like, is like it depends on, well, the hydration ratio of the noodles. And of course, like the higher the hydration ratio, like you have that, the more you have to dust and to keep them from sticking. Okay, so after second combining process, the the dough, right? Dough is like, we assume like totally developed, terms like gluten structure inside. So what we have to do from this point on is just thin it, right? Thin to the final thickness, but like we don't want to thin it drastically because that's going to damage the gluten structure. So you want to, thin it like gradually. That was like 3 millimeter gap, and so what we're doing now is like 2 millimeter sheeting. And but the good news is, we can speed up from this point on, and we can go faster. Yeah, by the way, like this is the Richmond one machine, and this particular unit is C version. Like all these like EU countries, they require like all these goods like coming from non-C countries to have like this C mark, which is just very strict kind of safety certificate that what like we have to like pass all these tests, and which costs a lot of money actually to you know get this kind of like kind of industrial like commercial machine to pass all these tests to be certified. And so but we did it like several years ago, and now this machine is being like installed like in making craft like fresh noodles across Europe. So um, and it's pretty versatile, like 10 kilograms mixer, and you can do like now up to like 100 servings of fresh craft spicy noodles in an hour from scratch. So um, yeah, I think it's pretty good piece of equipment. If you're just starting up, and so yeah, we have a lot of growing number of customers like using this machine across Europe. And so now we're doing the just thinning. And so after we do the thinning, right, few times, and yeah, it's like we need to check before we start cutting it, because we don't know how much this dough, the thickness is bouncing back from the roller gap that we set, right? Yeah, roller gap we said is 1.5 millimeter, but like the actual thickness is just 2 millimeter, like two, yeah, like even like two millimeter. So there's like 0.5 millimeter, thicker, the actual thickness. So it's like there's a difference. Like need to understand like there's a difference between like roller gap that we set and actual thickness of dough, because like it always expands back after it's gone through the roller, because it's the dough we are dealing with. So um, yeah, so anticipating the dough be like bounce back like about 0.5, and so this is the cutter, right? So it's number 16. So that's about like 2 millimeter in width, the width, right? So the, thickness of the noodles, like we control by the roller gap, right? And then but width of the noodles is controlled by this cutter, and that's going to be 2 millimeters. So the thickness would be, well, aiming at at about like 1.7 millimeter, and but like the width is going to be 2. It's like that's going to be 1.7 by 2 millimeter noodles, which is quite a good size for ramen noodles, and I think it's going to be really good with some kind of miso, just like kind of hearty miso, ramen soup, like, and then the noodle itself, like noodle themselves, like going to be like pretty hot, spicy, right? And I think they're gonna go well with yeah, miso. Okay, so we're cutting, and yeah, so it's gonna go into the cutter, right? Kind of shredder like cutter, and so the noodles are coming out, and so the cutter cuts it and like kind of splits the dough sheet into the noodle strands, right? And then um, so this machine can also adjust the length of the noodle. Length of noodle is determined by, yeah, so you can make it longer, and then that's a bigger serving size. And you can make it shorter, and that's, smaller serving size. So like it depends on, what the, well, appropriate serving size, like, be like for your restaurant business. So just like cuts it automatically, right? So like maybe too long, but yeah. So it's pretty convenient. Like, so you just decide on the length, and just weigh one something like, okay, that's like 130 grams, five ounce. Then just that's the length, right? And then just keeps cutting and portioning. Okay, so that's that's a Kraft chili spicy noodles, and that's how we can make Kraft spicy noodles from scratch. And um, yeah, but yeah, but one of the advice like we should give to you guys is that, like, when you're making these type of noodles, like, you should wear a mask, because well, it's just too much of like yeah, too pungent, like sometimes depending on like what kind of spice you're using. So that's a Kraft spicy noodles, and then so yeah, that's it. So thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you guys in the next class. So thank you. Bye bye. Have a good day. Bye.